picture of the General Post Office with the tricolour, that's the national flag flying from it. And in there, on Easter Monday morning, 1916, a number of revolutionaries barricaded the windows, ran up that tricolour, and then came out beneath the portico and read out what was called the Proclamation of the Irish Republic. For a week they lasted, fighting it off 10 to 1, until the whole of the street was completely devastated. There are some very old pictures, some of you may have seen them, still extant in history books, showing the whole of the O'Connell Street in ruins. And then the following week they were taken out. Many of them were transported to England, where they spent a period in prison, others were executed. And they were the founding fathers of this state. Now, since then, of course, O'Connell Street has been completely rebuilt, I'm afraid in a very haphazard, quick fashion. Nothing of great beauty here except the post office itself, which is, of course, now a national shrine. The GPO, as they call it here, General Post Office. In the centre, beside the taxi rank here on the right-hand side, you'll see a picture of a gentleman with his hands outspread in the midst of an oration. That is James Larkin, the great Labour leader, who led a big strike here in 1913. And eventually ended up in Sing Sing because he was mixed up with the Sacco and Vanzetti trial in the United States. Now comes down to the man after whom the street is called, Daniel O'Connell. You'll see him here with his back to us on the right-hand side. More of this gentleman anon. Now Dublin is built on a river called the Liffey. You see it there to the left and to the right. We're crossing over the bridge now, which separates the north side from the south. We are on the southern bank now of the River Liffey. Well, someone said the more fashionable side, but that's a matter of opinion, but nevertheless, in we come. Well, we crossed over the River Liffey and we turned the corner here, around to the right-hand side, and you'll see in front of you again another colonnaded building. This was the former House of Lords and House of Commons. They had both here in this country up to 1800, when they were abolished and removed to London. A gentleman who's standing by the window, the great parliamentarian, and of course Goldsmith. Now Trinity College, we'll stop in a moment and you can go in and have a look at it. Trinity College Dublin was founded way back in 1592 by none other than Queen Elizabeth I, on land which was confiscated from the canons of St. Augustine during the suppression of the monasteries. This land became available. Nice squares now that will remind us of that period. Now, Dublin has a French connection too. If you look over this little black railing here on the left-hand side through that brown door, you see it here on the left? That is the Huguenot cemetery, where in 1693, the Huguenots, who were French, as you know, and Protestant, were persecuted by Louis XIV and had to leave France. See, pogroms were nothing new, you know? Yes, sir?
Will we get an opportunity to change our money?
Oh, you will, yes. You do not change any yet. Oh, you will. You'll have a chance. I'll give you some today and you can pay me back tomorrow, yeah? We may not have a chance to get to a bank today now, but I'll give you some money and you can pay me back tomorrow.
Well, we'd like the proper rate of exchange.
I'll give you £1 for pound, sir. And you can get the money, change it tomorrow and give it to me. Yeah? I'll just give you Irish money now and you can give me the Irish money tomorrow. I don't change money at any time or for anybody, but I'll give you some money and you can give it to me back tomorrow. Will you change it in the bank?
We're not going to stop at a bank?
We won't have time today, sir. I thought you would have it, but I'll give you some today. Don't worry, I'll fix you up later on. Now, we come down here to our House of Parliament, here on the left-hand side. And that's where the representatives meet, who govern the affairs of this nation. 600 of them, 2 houses, 1 Senate, 1 Congress, or Commons, whichever you prefer. Elections are free and secret ballot. Everyone over the age of 18 votes. And we have a Prime Minister here, like in Britain. He is the one who, in fact, runs the government. The President here is only a figurehead. He has no real power whatsoever. He's just the head of state. To me, diplomats and that sort of thing represent the country abroad. But the real power is held by the Prime Minister. So everyone over the age of 18 votes. We have no extremes of left or right in Parliament, the mainly centre parties. And the final word about them, they are elected every 5 years. That's if they last that long. one time they only lasted 1 year, but normally they have to go every 5 years before the public to be voted in again. So there's no distinction about property or sex. Everyone over the age of 18, poor and rich, have the right to vote. Bishop Berkeley, many others, here in Dublin at the time, and they lived in a style all their own. Now, a little further up, we'll come to a standstill if it's possible. It's difficult to do this on a Tuesday. Sunday's a much better day to do this, but we'll come round this way and I'll pause momentarily and show you something about these houses. So you can see them here on the left. Can you imagine what they must have been like in 1723 when they were newly built? The whole of the city looking like that. And the square that you see here with its park is reflected on the north side, except the one on the north side today is broken down into tenement slums. Now each one of these houses has its half-moon fanlight, its floor scraper outside, its servants downstairs, its children away asleep at the top of the nursery, and the big windows in the centre where the Allied alarm, odd thing to see outside a house like that, however. Those big windows will indicate to you the size of the rooms. Now, they had no TV, radios, anything like that in the old days. They had harpsichords, and people had salons there. They used to read poetry, recite poetry to each other, or readings from books, authors. The literati used to come here. This is where Swift, the poet Open Gay, used to come. And this is where he met the young girl that he fell in love with and eventually married, although he never consummated that marriage. That was Stella. Met her here. I'll tell you more about that situation later on when we've more time. But that's how they lived. They had footmen inside in the hall. All the ceilings, not only in the hall, but in every one of the rooms, was the work of Italian craftsmen, all inlaid, plasterwork. And hanging from the centre of the room was a chandelier, a crystal chandelier. Golden candlesticks on the marble fireplace. Wonderful way of life here. And then, when the Act of the Union was signed in 1800, the House of Commons and the House of Lords left Dublin and went to the House of Commons and the House of Lords in London. So there was no real political purpose to be here anymore. And the whole emphasis then was on London life. And bit by bit they sold off their Irish properties. Remember, these people didn't work. No gentleman ever worked. That was for the other classes. So that when it came around, you know, with the Industrial Revolution, and money had to be made not from big estates, but by actually getting involved in business and banking, or in selling wool, or merchandise, or building ships, laying down railways. Lots of these people couldn't accommodate that type of life. And they whittled away their money, gambling debts, Baden, Monte Carlo, selling off the woodlands on their estates, and eventually selling the estates themselves. That's how many of these houses became derelict. And then the new class, the middle class, began to emerge. The doctors, the lawyers, the teachers, and so on. And then bit by bit, all that changed too over the years. We see outside each one there's a plate, brass plate, representing companies, some of them spurious, some of them just a name plate, import, export, you know, the sort of thing I mean. Some of them again were quite respectable. So that's about the best example now I can show you of it. And in your mind's eye now you have to forget all about the motor cars and think what this must be like when a coach and four would pull up outside and liveried servants, much as we would have seen at the Royal Regiment, that type of thing, would be making its way round Dublin, the open landers. Because at the rear of every one of these houses there was a coach house. And when you decided to go out, you put on your cloak, the riding boots, you ring the bell, your servant would bring round your horse. If you wanted to use a horse just to ride on, or if you wanted to take your coach, you take a coach and go off. For King Henry II of England, Richard de Clare, the Norman Duke, this is where he lies buried with his wife, Aoife. And this now is the centre of the Protestant church known as the Church of Ireland. There are other branches of the Protestant church, but this is the Church of Ireland, the high Anglican church in this country. The same as the Church of England, in fact, except for the subtle difference that the head of this church is no longer the Queen of England, or the King of England as the case may be. It is the Protestant Archbishop, who is the primate of all Ireland and the head of that Anglican church. That's the subtle difference between the two of them. Otherwise, in the form of ceremony and everything else, exactly the same as the Church of England. Both of these two cathedrals are both Church of Ireland, both Protestant. No Roman Catholic cathedral whatsoever in Dublin. Now, down here, this is where the corporation occupation. Bulldozed over the whole area where the Viking remains were. And look what they put in its place. Hard to believe that. All that area, bulldozed, covered in, concreted in, and what remained, the artifacts, were put into huge wooden boxes, tea chests, and sent to the museum on Mumford. Hard to believe that. See it over there. If they put up something beautiful in this place, one could even forgive, perhaps. Perhaps not forget, but forgive. But look what they put up in this place, you know. No need for that bit to be there at all, you know. They could have moved that house to another part of the city. Civil, criminal, and military courts are all based over there. 4 courts of justice. And that's part of the city of Dublin. Now, we will not go any further up that way because we'll be leaving the city now this afternoon and coming back in this way on Sunday. So we leave that portion of the city until we come back on Sunday. We'll go off now, make our way up, back to the gallery, where we will have our lunch. Now, a couple of words here before we go any further about how this Norman business came about in the first place. A woman was at the bottom of it, as we find in most cases. Now, in the old days, we had a high king here who was in charge of Ireland. And he governed very similar to the kings in Italy or Germany before either Garibaldi or Bismarck united them into one common country. Now, every year they held a big feast at a place called Tara. That's probably how Margaret Mitchell got that Tara for Scarlett O'Hara. Tara was a place where the High King resided. And this is where he had his palace. So all the small princelings and petty princes and petty kings used to come there and pay tribute to him and sit there at their banquet. And one of these was the King of Dublin, of Leinster, a man called King Dermot MacMurrough in Gaelic, or to give him his anglicised name, Dermot Murphy. Well, King Murphy, believe it or not, was there by himself, and he was sitting opposite the prince. Human beings being what they were, he gave her the eye, and she returned, and he seduced her with his eyes, and she came with him back to Dublin, leaving the feast, leaving her husband. And of course, the High King was infuriated with this, and he decided to march from Dublin, overthrow King Murphy, and take this girl back. That's sort of Helen of Troy in reverse, if you follow me. Anyway, King Murphy panicked, and he went as straight as his nature would allow him to go, which wasn't very difficult for him. He went over to England and asked King Henry II for his help to restore him to his kingdom. Now, King Henry wanted to get rid of all these Norman knights and barons who were drinking and plotting against him in Wales. This was an ideal opportunity to get rid of them. That's how they all came over in 1169. Now, that's a thumbnail sketch of how the occupation took place in the first place, and that lasted until 1922. Now, we'll see much remains of those occupations elsewhere as we make our way around the country. The great Norman castles, one of them has been completely restored by General Goff. You'll see that later on, maybe to visit it. Some of the others will be in ruins. When we arrive at the Constable, book ourselves in, and we should have dinner all going well at 7:30 this evening. But before dinner at 7 o'clock, we'll arrange to meet in a room that has yet to be decided upon. I'll leave that up to the hotel management. We'll meet in a room about 7, where we'll have a little drinking pool, a little welcome drink. And that'll be another music, and later by the Lord Protector Oliver Cromwell. Both of these used the same system to pay off soldiers as the Roman army used. And that was not in a pension as we understand a man or a woman who's been in the services in modern times. When you retire, if you're long enough in the service, that is, they give you a pension. But in the old days, they used to give you a tract of land to settle you as, first of all, settlers, to colonize new areas in Europe and elsewhere, and also to enable people to settle down, live a decent life. Now, the wars being as they were in those days, they were quite ferocious, but nevertheless, many people did survive to draw on this pension form and to be given these tracts of land. So to find land for them, many of the native Irish were banished from that area on the eastern coast. And a lot of them went over to the west, to Connemara, to Galway, where the land is very rough and there's lots of stone. The lucky ones were able to settle down and find a place from which they were able to farm and make some sort of a living. Others couldn't settle down at all, they were too homesick, or found it too difficult. And they began to adopt the same lifestyle as the gypsies in Europe adopt. In other words, travelling around in caravans from place to place. Now, the gypsies, as you all know, are an ethnic group from Central Europe. And it might be just as well to point out that in the Holocaust, a terrible period in Europe, they suffered very, very badly. Many of them were completely wiped out. In fact, in some countries in Central Europe, which are now behind the Iron Curtain, there are very, very few of them left at all. Just as a race, almost completely obliterated. Now, only in the lifestyle are they similar to the gypsies. They are not Romanies, who are peculiar to Britain, nor are they gypsies, ethnic groups from Central Europe. They just adopt that lifestyle because it's handy for a nomad to move from place to place in a caravan drawn by horse. Now, in the old days, they used to sell rush mats, they used to mend pots. The very expression, he or she did not give a tinker's damn. You often heard of that, or read about it. I couldn't give a tinker's damn what you thought of me, or what he thought of you, so on. A tinker's damn, in fact, was a little wall of spittle and clay put round a hole in a pot. The tinker then would sold in that hole, and then brush away the little dam, the whole of sort of place made of spittle and clay, which was worthless. That's how the expression came into the language. Well now, they used to do things like that, buy and sell odd little horses, gibbets, the cross between a horse and a donkey and so on. People never asked them where they got these horses from, you know, did a little bit of poaching and so on. Sometimes they used to tell the tea leaves at the bottom of a cup.